Hello friends, welcome aboard the Sleepy Fairy Tale Express. I'm the Red Mermaid. This train is a dream journey to fairy tale land. Have you all got your train tickets? Subscribe and hit the like button to always be able to ride. Close your eyes, prick up your ears, and listen in a comfortable position. Today's story is Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, there lived a wealthy merchant. This merchant was the father of 6 children. He had 3 sons and 3 daughters. The merchant was a very wise man. He spared no expense in educating his children. To provide them with the best education, he invited teachers from various fields to their home. The merchant's house was always lively and bustling. Every morning, several teachers would arrive at the house to teach the children various subjects. Throughout the house, you could hear the sounds of children studying hard and teachers kindly explaining things. In one room, the math teacher could be heard solving complex problems with the children, while in another room, the music teacher played beautiful melodies and introduced the children to the joy of music. The merchant watched these scenes with satisfaction and contentment. He wanted his children to grow up to be wonderful people, and most importantly, he wanted them to be warm-hearted and considerate. Therefore, he taught them that not only studying but also having a good character and morals were important. The merchant's house was truly a place filled with knowledge and love. The children worked hard to meet their father's expectations. They helped each other with their studies, played together, and shared laughter. The merchant felt immense happiness watching his children. His heart was always full of deep love and pride for them. The daughters were very beautiful. Among them, the youngest daughter was extraordinarily beautiful. People called her Beauty. But Beauty was not only beautiful on the outside. She had a kind heart and was always friendly and considerate to everyone. The youngest Beauty had long golden hair and sparkling blue eyes. Her laughter was clear and bright, making those around her feel happy. When Beauty smiled, it was like the sun rising, brightening everything around her. Her beauty and warm heart were evident to everyone. However, Beauty's older sisters were jealous of her. They envied Beauty for being prettier and kinder than themselves. They felt increasingly jealous of the love and praise that Beauty naturally received, which they couldn't attain despite their efforts. The sisters envied Beauty's goodness and beauty, but instead of expressing their feelings honestly, they ended up hating her. Beauty knew that her sisters were jealous of her, but she did not resent them. Instead, she treated them even more kindly and tried to alleviate their jealousy and insecurity. Beauty wished for her sisters to be happy and hoped they would understand her genuine intentions. Her warm heart moved many people deeply. The sisters, being wealthy, were very arrogant. They always behaved like noble ladies and refused to associate with the daughters of other merchants. They believed they always had to be in the highest position. To be their friend, one had to be exceptional in some way. The sisters spent their days at balls and theaters. Wearing splendid dresses and adorned with expensive jewelry, they were always the center of attention. They enjoyed being envied by others. However, the youngest sister, Beauty, was different. She preferred spending her time reading good books rather than attending balls or theaters. She loved losing herself in beautiful stories while sitting in a quiet room. Her eyes sparkled whenever she read a book, and her heart was filled with warm emotions. But her sisters couldn't understand her and always teased her. "Why are you reading those boring books? There are so many fun things in the world," they would say, laughing at Beauty. But Beauty remained undeterred by their mockery and continued on her path. Several wealthy men proposed to the sisters because of their riches. However, these sisters would not marry anyone who was not a duke or at least a viscount. They always sought higher status and more wealth. In contrast, Beauty politely thanked those who proposed to her but declined, saying she was too young and needed to stay by her father's side for a few more years. One day, the merchant suddenly lost a lot of money. All he had left was a small house in the countryside, far from the city. The merchant tearfully told his children, "My dears, we must now stay at the country house. If you work like farmers, you will be able to live well there too." The children were shocked, but the merchant explained their new life to them. The country house was a small cottage, far from the comforts they enjoyed in the city. The merchant told his children that he would work hard too, and that if they all worked together, they could live happily. The merchant hugged his children tightly and comforted them. He hoped they would adapt well to their new environment. "Once you get used to country life, you will discover the beauty of nature and the joys of a simple life," he said, encouraging them. However, the two older sisters answered that they didn't want to leave the city. "We are still beautiful and charming. Someone will want to marry us," they said confidently. They still considered themselves special and couldn't give up the glamorous city life. But they were mistaken. Since they had become poor, their suitors no longer paid attention to them. The men who once pursued them for their money and status now only saw their arrogance and vanity. People said, "They are worthless now. At best, they might get some sympathy. Finally, their arrogance will be humbled. Are they going to act like noble ladies while tending sheep?" The sisters found it hard to accept this reality. They still thought of themselves as special and superior to others. But people's views were harsh, and the sisters became increasingly isolated. They had to accept the consequences of their arrogance. The sisters couldn't believe they had to leave the city. They could no longer imagine life without the attention and admiration they once received. However, reality approached them coldly. There were no more glamorous balls and theaters. Instead, a new life of farming awaited them. But at the same time, people said, "It's so unfortunate for Beauty. She is such a good child, always kind to the poor. She is truly gentle and honest. Beauty always considered others and treated them kindly. Her warm heart left a deep impression on people. Whether rich or poor, she always acted kindly and honestly. Therefore, people respected and loved her. Despite having nothing, many gentlemen proposed to Beauty. They were captivated not only by her beauty but also by her kind heart. Many wanted to hold Beauty's hand and spend their lives with her. But Beauty always responded politely, "I cannot leave my poor father in misfortune. I must go to the countryside and help him with many things." Beauty valued her family's happiness more than her own. She decided to dedicate herself to her father and family. So, she chose the path to the countryside and planned to start a new life with her family there. In truth, poor Beauty was deeply distressed at first by the loss of their money. She felt very sad about losing the comfortable city life, the beautiful house, and the splendid clothes. At night, she cried quietly in her room, longing for the abundance of the past. But each time, she reminded herself, "Crying won't bring back our wealth. I must learn to be happy without money." Beauty braced herself and prepared for a new beginning. She resolved that she could overcome any hardship for her family. Beauty kept her positive attitude and accepted her new life. The merchant's family moved to the country house. The merchant and his 3 sons started farming. They tilled the land, sowed seeds, and worked hard. Country life was very different from their glamorous city life, but they adapted by helping each other. Beauty woke up at 4 in the morning and spent the whole day cleaning the house and preparing meals for the family. She was not used to working like a servant, so it was very hard at first. She swept and cleaned every corner of the house, cooked meals, did the dishes, and hung out the laundry all day long. But after about 2 months, Beauty grew stronger and could handle the hard work. She could now wake up early without feeling tired and skillfully managed all the household chores. After finishing her work, Beauty would read books, play the harpsichord, sing, or spin thread. She still loved the world of books and found peace in playing beautiful melodies. Beauty did not lose her hobbies and joys, even in difficult circumstances. On the contrary, the two older sisters felt like they were going to die of boredom. They would wake up at 10 in the morning and spend the whole day walking outside. They talked about fine clothes and men, lamenting their loss. They sighed, comparing their current life to the glamorous life they once enjoyed in the city. They avoided work and couldn't adapt to country life. They spent the whole day idly, longing for the wealth and honor they had lost. The sisters looked at Beauty and said, "Look at our youngest. She has a lowly soul. Only a fool would be content in this miserable situation." The sisters couldn't understand why Beauty accepted country life positively and without complaint. They thought she was out of touch with reality. But the kind merchant did not think like his two daughters. He knew that Beauty was humble and stood out among others. She never lost her smile while doing housework and diligently carried out all tasks. The sisters constantly complained and cursed while doing housework. They grumbled incessantly and went outside as soon as their chores were done, spending the rest of the day idly. On the other hand, Beauty quietly completed her tasks and maintained a positive attitude despite the difficult situation. The merchant admired Beauty's kind heart and perseverance. A year had passed since the family began living a quiet life in the countryside. One day, the merchant received a letter. To his delight, the letter said that the ship carrying his cargo had finally arrived. The merchant hurried to share the hopeful news with his children. The two older sisters were overjoyed, dreaming that they would soon leave this tedious countryside. "Father will become rich again. We can return to the city," they exclaimed, unable to hide their excitement. Their eyes were filled with anticipation for the return of their glamorous city life. When their father was ready to leave, the sisters begged him to buy them skirts, scarves, hats, and all sorts of trinkets. "Father, please buy me a new skirt. I need a fancy hat," they constantly demanded. They wanted to have everything they needed to return to the glamorous city life. Beauty did not ask for anything. She thought that even selling all the cargo from the ship would not be enough to buy what her sisters wanted. Concerned about her family's financial situation, she refrained from making any wishes. Beauty always had a considerate heart for others, so she was reluctant to ask for anything for herself. Then her father said to her, "You are not asking for anything." After thinking for a moment, Beauty gently replied, "Father, if you would think of me, please bring me a single rose. There are none to be found here." In fact, Beauty did not really desire a rose. But she said this because she knew her sisters would surely criticize her if she asked for nothing. Beauty mentioned a small wish to avoid being blamed or making her sisters uncomfortable. She always had a warm heart, putting others' needs before her own desires. Her father was moved by Beauty's humble wish and hugged her tightly. "I will surely bring you the rose you desire," he promised, unable to hide his desire to do anything for his daughter. Beauty's modesty and thoughtfulness deeply touched her father. The merchant soon set off on his journey. He intended to fulfill the wishes of his two older daughters and Beauty. However, when he arrived, he found many people fighting over his cargo, each claiming it as their own. The merchant endured much suffering there, and in the end, his situation did not improve. Having lost a great deal of his wealth, the merchant was filled with disappointment and sorrow. Still, home was only about 50 kilometers away, and he found joy in the thought of seeing his children. The merchant, despite the long journey, found some comfort in the hope of reuniting with his children. But on his way home, he lost his way in a large forest. A severe snowstorm hit. Snow swirled around him from all directions, blinding his view. A tremendous wind blew. The merchant struggled even to stay upright. Twice, he was blown off his horse by the wind. He remounted his horse, but the snow and wind continued to torment him. Night was approaching, and he was starving. Eerie sounds echoed around him, whether it was the wind or wolves howling, he couldn't tell. Trembling with fear, the merchant held onto his horse's reins and pressed on with difficulty. Then, he saw a faint light shining through the trees at the end of a small path. The dim light gave him hope, but it was quite far away, and he had to walk a long time to reach it. After a long walk, a large, brightly lit castle came into view. The merchant thanked the gods for guiding him to the castle and hurried inside. But he was greatly surprised to find no one there. The castle was silent and empty. His starving horse, following him, dashed into an open barn filled with hay and oats. The merchant tied his horse in the barn and walked into the castle. There was no one inside. The merchant looked around for someone, but there was no one to be found. However, when he entered a large room, he found a pleasantly burning fireplace. On the table was a large roasted meat and a single setting. The merchant cautiously approached the fireplace, astonished by this warm hospitality. Soaked to the bone by the rain and snow, the merchant approached the fireplace to warm himself. The warm flames embraced him, driving away the cold. He muttered to himself, "Surely the owner or family of this castle will forgive my freedom here. They will surely arrive soon." Feeling a bit more at ease, the merchant carefully looked around. Still, no one appeared. He sat by the fireplace, warming himself, and looked at the food on the table. Exhausted and starving, he fought the urge to eat, waiting patiently. He waited a long time. As time passed, the castle grew even quieter, and the merchant became more anxious. When the clock struck 11, no one had appeared. Unable to withstand his hunger any longer, he finally picked up the chicken on the table and took a few bites. The warm meat alleviated his hunger. After a few sips of wine, he felt bold enough to leave the room and slowly explore the grand rooms and magnificent furniture. The castle was quiet and splendid. Large chandeliers, beautiful paintings on the walls, and exquisite furniture caught his eye. The merchant admired everything as he looked around. Eventually, he found a room with a bed. It was past midnight, and he was very tired, so he locked the door and fell asleep as soon as he lay down. When he woke up the next morning, it was 10 o'clock. To his surprise, he was wearing clean clothes, and the bed, which had been old the night before, was now in good condition. The soft, clean sheets enveloped him comfortably. The merchant muttered in amazement, "Surely this castle belongs to a kind fairy who took pity on me." Looking out the window, he saw that the snowstorm had ceased. Instead, a beautiful garden filled with flowers greeted his eyes. The merchant entered the large room where he had eaten the night before. Seeing a few pieces of chocolate on a small table, he raised his voice and said, "Thank you, fairy, for thinking of my breakfast." The merchant gratefully picked up the chocolate and began to eat. The sweet chocolate melted in his mouth, satisfying his hunger. He felt relieved, thinking that someone in the castle was looking after him. After eating the chocolate, the merchant went out to find his horse. On his way to the barn, he passed through the garden. Then, seeing the arbor covered in roses, he remembered Beauty's request. Delighted at the sight of the beautiful roses in full bloom, the merchant thought of the rose Beauty had wished for. He broke off a single rose from the many that were there. At that moment, a loud roar was heard, and a terrifying beast suddenly appeared. The merchant was nearly fainting from shock. The beast growled and spoke in a menacing voice. "You ungrateful man! I saved your life by allowing you into my castle, and in return, you steal my roses? The roses I love most in the world. You have committed a crime and must die. I will give you 15 minutes to pray to your God." The merchant fell to his knees at the beast's feet, clasping his hands together in supplication. "My lord, please forgive me. I never dreamed that picking this rose for one of my daughters would anger you so." The beast responded, "Do not call me your majesty. Just call me the beast. I do not like flattery. Speak as you think. Do not try to butter me up. You said you have a daughter? Then bring one of your daughters here instead of you, and I will forgive you. Swear that if your daughters refuse to die in your place, you will return here within 3 months without any excuses." The beast's voice was stern and resolute. The merchant was devastated by the reality that he would lose his life if he didn't bring one of his daughters. But he knew he had no choice but to comply with the beast's demand. He wept as he thought of his daughters and made a heavy-hearted decision. The merchant had no intention of offering his daughter to this cruel monster. But he thought he should at least enjoy the joy of returning home and hugging his daughters once more. He swore to return. The beast said, "Leave whenever you wish. But do not go empty-handed. Return to the room where you slept last night. There you will find an empty chest. Fill it with whatever you like and take it with you." Then the beast vanished. The merchant thought to himself, "If I must die, at least I should bring back a piece of bread for my poor children." He returned to the room where he had slept the previous night. There, among large gold ingots, was the large chest the beast had mentioned. He filled the chest with gold ingots. Then he went to the barn, mounted his horse, and hurriedly left the castle. The joy he felt when he first entered the castle was now replaced with deep sorrow. His horse circled through the forest and soon arrived at the small house. His children, seeing him, rejoiced and gathered around him. "Father, you've returned," they exclaimed, shedding tears of joy. But the merchant, unable to embrace them, began to cry as he looked at them. He handed Beauty a single rose and said, "Beauty, take this rose. It is a flower far more precious than your poor father." He soon recounted the tragic events that had befallen him to his family. The family was shocked and plunged into sorrow. The 2 older sisters screamed and berated Beauty, who did not shed a single tear. "Look at this arrogant girl. Why didn't she ask for clothes or jewelry like we did? No. She always wants to stand out. Because of her, father will die. Yet she doesn't seem sad or cry." The sisters hurled accusations at Beauty, but she calmly listened to them. She was heartbroken to realize that her desire for a rose had brought such great suffering to her father. However, she did not cry. Despite her sister's accusations, Beauty accepted this situation with composure and thought deeply about what she needed to do. Then Beauty replied, "Sisters, there is no use in crying. Why should we cry about Father's death? Nothing will change. The beast wants one of Father's daughters. I will go to calm the beast's anger. I am glad because if I die, I can save Father." The sisters were astonished by Beauty's words. They had never seen her speak so decisively. Her eyes were determined, showing courage in accepting this situation without fear. Then her three brothers said, "No, little sister. You will not die. We will go to the beast. If we cannot kill him, then we will die instead." The brothers resolved to protect Beauty, ready to risk their lives by going to the beast. They were prepared to face any danger to protect their sister. The family's love and sacrifice brought them together. The merchant said, "Kill him? Do not expect that, children. The beast is very strong. I have no hope of killing him. I am touched by Beauty's kind heart, but I do not want her to die. This old father has few days left to live, so it is better that I sacrifice a few years. I do not want to regret losing my beloved children." Tears filled the merchant's eyes. He was heartbroken to see his daughters and sons willing to sacrifice themselves to protect each other. Although he deeply felt the family's love, he did not want to sacrifice any of them. The merchant had decided to return to the beast, but Beauty had already made up her mind. Beauty then said, "Father, I promise you this. You will not go to that castle without me. And you cannot stop me from going with you. Though I am young, I do not desire to live. I would rather be devoured by that monster than lose you." Beauty's words were firm. She believed that being sacrificed to the beast was better than losing her father. Beauty solidified her decision and prepared to go to the castle to protect her family. Her spirit of sacrifice and courage deeply moved the merchant and her siblings. Beauty truly wanted to go to the castle. She was determined to sacrifice herself to save her father. The two older sisters felt intense jealousy toward their youngest sister's kind heart. Instead of respecting Beauty's courage, they were filled with jealousy and envy. They found it difficult to admit that Beauty had a nobler heart than they did. The merchant, overwhelmed by the thought of losing his daughter, had completely forgotten about the chest filled with gold. But that evening, as he went to his room to sleep and locked the door, he was very surprised to find the chest he had not moved still beside his bed. It was filled with gold ingots. The merchant decided not to tell his children that he had become rich again. He knew they would surely insist on returning to the city. He wanted to live quietly in this countryside. However, he confided this secret to Beauty. Beauty understood her father's feelings and wanted to continue living a quiet country life with him. Beauty then mentioned that several gentlemen had come to propose to her sisters during his absence. She asked her father to marry off her sisters. She was very kind, loved her sisters, and had forgiven all their bad deeds. Beauty's warm heart brought great comfort to her family, and her sacrifice deepened the family's love. The two bad sisters, when Beauty and their father left, rubbed onions into their eyes to force out a few fake tears. They did not truly feel sad, but tried to appear sorrowful. But their brothers, who were as kind as their father, began to wail in agony. The brothers were heartbroken at the thought of losing their sister. The only one not crying was Beauty. She was also in great pain but did not want to add to her family's suffering. Beauty braced herself to comfort her family. She suppressed her sorrow and acted calmly. The horse moved toward the castle, and by evening they saw the same bright lights they had seen before. As the castle lights drew closer, Beauty reaffirmed her decision. The horse was left alone in the stable. The merchant and Beauty entered a large room where a grand feast was laid out on a large table, with settings for two. The merchant had no desire to eat anything. His heart was filled with sorrow and anxiety. But Beauty, trying to appear calm, sat at the table and began to eat. She did her best to smile, not wanting to worry her father. Beauty took a bite of the food and thought, "The beast must want me to fatten up before he eats me. That's why he set out such good food." Although she suspected the beast's intentions, she tried her best to remain calm. Beauty focused on the food to reassure her father. Despite her heart being filled with fear and sadness, she did not lose her courage for the sake of her family. While they were eating, a loud noise was heard. The merchant, with tears in his eyes, said goodbye to his poor daughter, thinking it was the beast's roar. Beauty, upon seeing the beast's fearsome appearance, couldn't help but tremble. However, she tried her best to appear calm. The beast, after staring at her in silence for a moment, asked her, "Did you come here willingly?" She answered, trembling, "Yes." The beast stared at her for a while and then said, "You are a good person." "Thank you. Old man, leave tomorrow morning and never set foot here again. Beauty, have a good night." Beauty replied, "Goodbye, beast." The beast immediately disappeared. The merchant hugged Beauty tightly and said, "Oh, my daughter. I was half dead with fear. The merchant embraced his daughter tightly, feeling relieved. Beauty, nestled in her father's arms, did her best to soothe his worries and fears. Despite her own fear, she had faced the beast with courage for her father's sake. She gave her father a light smile, reassuring him that everything would be all right. Beauty spoke firmly, "Trust me, father. Leave tomorrow morning and leave everything to heaven. Perhaps the beast will take pity on me." Beauty's voice was resolute, and her gaze unwavering. She tried to calm her father, doing everything she could to reassure him. The merchant, moved by his daughter's courage and determination, decided to trust her. Beauty comforted her father and tried to find hope in her encounter with the beast. They lay down to sleep. Although they thought they would stay awake all night, the bed was so comfortable that their eyes soon closed. In Beauty's dream, a woman appeared and spoke softly. "Beauty, I am moved by your kind heart. Your actions to save your father, even at the cost of your own life, will surely be rewarded." The woman's voice was gentle and comforting. Beauty felt a sense of relief as she listened to the woman in her dream. She gained confidence that her sacrifice and courage would not be in vain. The woman in her dream smiled at her, and Beauty drew strength from the warmth of her gaze. When Beauty awoke, she told her father about her dream. Her face was filled with hope, but the merchant was still consumed with worry and sorrow. As the time to part from his beloved daughter approached, the merchant was tormented, constantly sighing and weeping. The thought of not being able to protect his daughter weighed heavily and sadly on his heart. After her father left, Beauty sat alone in the large room, shedding big tears. The room was quiet, and only the sound of her tears echoed. However, Beauty was very brave and soon decided to leave everything to God and not to be sad about her remaining time. "There is no use in being sad. God will protect me, and I must be thankful that I could save my father." That evening, Beauty firmly believed the beast would eat her. However, she hid her fear and prepared to face her last moments calmly. She walked slowly around the castle, observing her surroundings and steadying her heart. Beauty decided to take a walk around the castle while waiting for dinner. As she walked through the castle, she was astonished by its beauty. The splendid decorations and grand architecture captivated her. She then discovered a door labeled Beauty's Room and couldn't keep her mouth shut in amazement. She quickly opened the door. The room was dazzlingly beautiful. Sunlight streamed in through large windows, brightening the room, and the walls were adorned with beautiful paintings. The bed was surrounded by luxurious curtains, and the floor was covered with soft carpets. What surprised her even more was the large bookshelf, a harpsichord, and numerous sheet music in the room. Beauty murmured softly, "They must want to keep me from getting bored." And she thought, they wouldn't have prepared so many things if they planned to keep me here for just one day. This thought gave her more courage. Beauty wandered around the room, examining the bookshelf and opening the sheet music. When she took a book from the shelf and opened it, she saw golden letters that read, "Wish, ask, here you are, queen and mistress." The golden letters sparkled and caught her eye. Beauty read the words slowly and thought to herself, "Oh, I just want to see my poor father again. I want to know what he is doing now." She sighed and spoke to herself. Her voice was filled with longing and sadness. Then something amazing happened. When she looked at the large mirror, she saw her house in it. Her father, with a sad face, was arriving home. His expression was filled with deep anguish and sorrow. Her sisters came to him. They also pretended to be sad, but it was clear from their faces that they were happy the youngest was gone. Their true feelings were plainly visible. After a while, everything disappeared. Beauty, having seen this scene, fell into deep thought. She realized that the beast was very generous, and she need not fear him. Beauty understood that the beast, despite his terrifying appearance, had a kind heart. At noon, she had lunch. In the evening, she enjoyed a magnificent performance of musical instruments playing by themselves. The sound of the harpsichord and violin blended into a beautiful melody, and Beauty was captivated by the music. As night fell, she sat at the dining table. But as she heard the beast's voice, she couldn't help but tremble. The beast's fearsome appearance resurfaced in her mind. The beast slowly approached and said, "Beauty, did you enjoy the food?" The beast's voice was low and gentle, yet it still inspired fear. Beauty summoned her courage and replied, "Yes, I enjoyed it very much." "Thank you." The beast nodded at her response, gazing at her. Beauty began to feel the warmth of the beast's heart little by little. The beast said to the beauty, "You are the master of this place, so please tell me anything that makes you uncomfortable." Beauty replied, trembling, "Aren't you the master here?" The beast said, "No. You are the only master here. If I bother you, you just have to tell me to leave, and I will go immediately." Tell me, am I not truly hideous? Beauty answered honestly, yes, that is true. I am not a liar. But I think you are a good person. The Beast nodded and said, that is true. But I am not only ugly, I am not wise either. I am just foolish. Beauty responded gently, not being wise does not make you foolish. That is a ridiculous thing to say. The Beast paused, reflecting on her heartfelt words. Hearing her, he began to see himself from a new perspective. The Beast felt grateful for Beauty's warm heart and sincerity, and he grew to respect her even more. The Beast said, please enjoy your meal, Beauty. And try not to be bored in your house. Everything here belongs to you. If you are not happy, I will be sad as well. Beauty was touched by the Beast's consideration and said, you are a truly good person. I am very moved by your kindness. Thinking of this, you no longer seem hideous to me. The Beast replied quietly, indeed, I have a kind heart, but still, I am just a monster. Beauty said, there are people who are much more monstrous than you. I prefer your appearance. Those monstrous people hide their evil and wrong hearts behind human faces. The Beast thought for a moment after hearing her words and then replied sincerely, if I were wise, I would have many compliments to thank you with, but I am foolish. Nonetheless, what I want to say is thank you. Feeling the Beast's honest heart, Beauty began to understand him more deeply. She realized that, regardless of his appearance, the Beast possessed true goodness within, and she respected his inner self even more. Beauty enjoyed her dinner. She no longer found the Beast nearly as frightening. During dinner, the Beast was very kind to her. He quietly watched as she ate her favorite dishes, and Beauty found herself becoming comfortable in his presence. In the softly lit room, the two shared quiet conversations, spending time together. However, after dinner, the Beast cautiously spoke to Beauty. There was a hint of fear and tension in his eyes. Beauty, will you be my wife? The Beast asked in a trembling voice. She remained silent, fearing that rejecting him might anger him. His proposal surprised her, and she suddenly felt a surge of fear. But knowing that the Beast would not harm her, she replied, trembling, no. At that moment, the poor Beast let out a dreadful sigh. The sound echoed throughout the castle, deep and sorrowful, as if it reverberated off the walls. The Beast hung his head and said in a sad voice, "Goodbye, Beauty." His words sounded so sorrowful that they pained Beauty's heart. Beauty was relieved. As the Beast left the room, he occasionally glanced back at her. His eyes were filled with deep sadness and loneliness. The last look he gave her before leaving the room was unforgettable to Beauty. Watching him leave, Beauty felt immense compassion for the poor beast and muttered to herself, "Oh, how unfortunate to be so hideous despite having such a good heart. It's truly a pity." She realized that the beast was not truly a bad creature. His appearance was frightening, but his heart was warm and kind. Beauty understood that the beast's exterior did not reflect his inner goodness. Beauty spent 3 peaceful months in the castle. Every evening, the beast visited her room. They dined together and talked. The beast had wise thoughts, but he was not witty at all. He always spoke earnestly and honestly. Initially, their conversations were awkward, but as time passed, Beauty began to understand his sincerity. The beast always respected Beauty's opinions and listened attentively. Most of his stories were about the mysteries of the world and confessions about his life. Beauty found his stories fascinating. Although he was not human in appearance, his warm heart and genuine attitude greatly comforted her. As she saw the beast often, Beauty became accustomed to his ugly appearance. At first, she was startled by his frightening face and gruff voice, but as she got to know his inner self, she no longer felt afraid. She often found herself looking at the clock, eagerly awaiting 9 o'clock when the beast would visit. Their conversations became increasingly precious to her. Life in the castle also became familiar. Beauty spent her days tending the garden, reading books, and playing the harpsichord. She sang and played music, finding comfort in her surroundings. The beast genuinely wanted her to be happy. However, one thing troubled her greatly. Every night before going to bed, the beast asked if she would be his wife. The beast always asked gently and carefully, but to Beauty, the question felt like a heavy burden. "Beauty, will you marry me?" the beast asked cautiously, his eyes filled with sincerity. But Beauty felt pained. She did not love the beast yet, and marriage was too significant a decision for her. "No, beast. I cannot marry you," Beauty answered honestly. The beast's face darkened, and his eyes filled with deep sadness. He would show immense pain. Beauty's heart ached whenever she saw his suffering. The beast tried to smile at her, not wanting to appear hurt, but Beauty could feel his pain. This repeated situation became a great burden for Beauty. Every night, she felt heavy-hearted when the beast asked her that question. She did not want to hurt him, but could not lie. So every night, she had to answer with a sad heart. One day, Beauty spoke with difficulty. she no longer wanted to make the beast sad. So, she continued with sincerity. "Beast, you make me sad. I wish I could marry you. But I am very honest. I may never be able to marry you. Still, I will always be your friend. I hope that will satisfy you." Beauty's words came from the heart. She liked the beast, but did not feel love yet. She wanted to be his friend and ease his pain. The beast replied. His voice was gentle and sincere. "I know I must judge myself rightly. I am very ugly, and I know that well. But I love you very much. Still, the fact that you stay here makes me happy. Please promise you will not leave me." The beast's words pained Beauty. She felt how lonely and unhappy he was. His words, filled with genuine love and earnest hope, made Beauty blush. She could not ignore his sincerity. However, her heart was still confused. She did not yet fully understand the feeling of love. Then, looking into the mirror, she saw her father in great pain, grieving the loss of his daughter. He sighed heavily and stared out the window. His face was deeply wrinkled, and tears filled his eyes. Beauty felt her heart breaking as she watched. Her father was lonely and managing the household alone, his solitude and sorrow clearly visible in the mirror. Beauty wanted to alleviate her father's suffering. She approached the beast and spoke in a desperate voice. "I promise you, I will never leave your side. But I miss my father so much. If I cannot see him, I will die of sorrow." Tears welled up in Beauty's eyes. She was saddened by the fact that she couldn't leave the beast to visit her father. However, she couldn't ignore her father's suffering either. The beast listened to her words and remained silent for a moment. His eyes were filled with deep sadness and pain. The beast spoke, his voice filled with deep sorrow and resignation. "If I cause you pain, it would be easier for me to die. I will send you to your father's house. Stay there, and your poor beast will writhe in agony and die." The beast's words pained Beauty even more. She realized how much the beast loved her. However, her heart was also filled with longing for her father. Beauty, with tears streaming down her face, spoke. Her voice trembled but was resolute. "No. I care about you. I cannot let you die. I promise to return in a week. As you know, my sisters are all married, and my brothers are in the army, leaving my father alone. I will stay with him for just a week. Please, wait for me." The tears falling from Beauty's eyes conveyed her sincerity. She hoped the Beast would understand her heart. She wanted to ease her father's pain, but also promised not to abandon the Beast. The Beast had no choice but to accept her decision. "Leave tomorrow morning, but keep your promise. When you want to return, just place your ring on the table beside your bed. Goodbye." The Beast sighed deeply out of habit as he spoke these words. His sigh was filled with deep sadness and resignation. Beauty felt a heavy heart seeing his sorrowful face. She was pained by the fact that she had to leave the Beast, but found a bit of comfort in the hope of seeing her father. She went to bed but found it difficult to sleep, with the Beast's sad face haunting her. Eventually, she fell asleep, firmly resolved to return in a week. When Beauty awoke, she found herself at her father's house. She rang a small bell beside her bed, and a servant rushed in, screaming in surprise upon seeing her. Startled by the noise, her father hurried in and was overjoyed to see his beloved daughter again. They embraced for over 15 minutes, sharing the warmth they had longed for. After the joyous reunion, Beauty realized she hadn't brought any clothes. Just then, a servant approached and said, "Madam, we found large hats and dresses adorned with gold and diamonds in the next room." Beauty was deeply grateful for the Beast's kindness. She chose the least expensive-looking dress and told the servant to give the remaining dresses to her sisters. But before she could finish speaking, the dresses disappeared. Beauty and the servant stared at each other in shock. Her father said, "The Beast must have wanted you to have all these things." At that moment, the dresses reappeared in her hands. The clothes that had vanished magically reappeared before her. Beauty felt the Beast's thoughtfulness and love. He had taken care of her even in his absence. Beauty silently thanked the Beast from the bottom of her heart. Beauty changed into a beautiful dress. The dress, adorned with gold and diamonds, made her look even more elegant and radiant. Meanwhile, her sisters, hearing that Beauty had returned, came running with their husbands. They greeted Beauty with pitiful expressions, but inwardly, they were filled with jealousy. The eldest sister had married a handsome gentleman who was so obsessed with his appearance that he spent all day looking at himself in the mirror, constantly criticizing his wife's looks. The second sister had married a wise man who used his wisdom to criticize and get angry with others, always taking out his frustrations on his wife. Seeing Beauty dressed like a princess in an elegant dress, the two sisters were consumed with torment. Beauty warmly embraced her sisters, sharing how happy she was. She spoke about her life in the castle and the Beast's kind heart, expressing her happiness. However, her stories only fueled her sister's jealousy. The eldest sister, thinking of her husband's constant criticisms, grew angry, and the second sister, recalling her husband's outbursts, felt her stomach churn. Beauty tried to genuinely connect with her sisters, but their deep-seated jealousy did not easily fade. The two sisters went down to the garden, crying and talking to each other. "Why is the youngest happier than us? Why aren't we as loved as she is?" the eldest sister said, sobbing. The second sister, also in tears, replied, "She has always been loved by everyone. We have not. I don't understand why." The eldest said, "I have an idea. Let's keep the youngest here for more than a week. Then the foolish beast will be filled with rage, thinking she broke her promise. Maybe he will devour her." The second sister agreed. "You're right. If we do that, we might be more loved." The two sisters smiled and devised a malicious plan. They were jealous of the youngest and decided to prevent her from returning to the castle, hoping to anger the beast. Their deep-seated jealousy turned into a plan to harm their sister. Having made their decision, the two sisters returned to Beauty, treating her with extreme kindness. They welcomed her warmly and treated her with affection. Beauty, touched by their sudden kindness, cried tears of joy, believing they sincerely welcomed her. After a week, the two sisters pretended to be sad that Beauty was leaving and chased away all the horses. The eldest sister pleaded, "Dear sister, we are so sad that you are leaving. Can't you stay a bit longer?" The second sister added, "Yes, please spend more time with us." Softened by their pleas, Beauty promised to stay another week. She was moved by her sister's tears and pleas. However, as time passed, Beauty regretted causing the beast pain with her extended stay. She knew the beast was waiting and trusting her, and breaking her promise would deeply hurt him. Beauty felt a heavy heart thinking about the beast in the castle. His sad face haunted her, and she missed his kind heart and his thoughtfulness. She grew increasingly lonely without seeing the beast. Beauty reaffirmed her decision to return to the beast. On the 10th night at her father's house, Beauty had a dream. She was in the castle garden, and the beast was lying on the grass, dying in pain. His face was paler than usual, and his eyes were filled with sorrow and suffering. Beauty's ingratitude had led him to this state. Seeing this, she began to cry in her dream. "Beast, no! Please wake up!" Beauty cried out, running to the beast. But the beast did not respond. His breathing grew fainter, and his body grew colder. Beauty held his hand and wept, caressing his face. I am truly a terrible person. How could I bring such suffering to the beast who has been so considerate towards me? Is it his fault that he is ugly? That he lacks wisdom? But he is a good person. That is worth more than anything. Why didn't I want to marry him? I am so happy when I am with him, much more than my sisters are with their husbands. What makes a woman happy isn't her husband's beauty or wisdom. It's his good character, virtue, and kindness. And the beast has all of these. I don't love him, but I know how to be kind, respectful, and grateful. I must go to him. I can't bring him any more unhappiness. If I continue to act this way, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Beauty cried as she scolded herself. She now realized the true value of the beast. The beast was a person with a warm heart and genuine kindness, not defined by his appearance or wisdom. Beauty resolved never to leave the beast again. With these thoughts, Beauty woke up and placed the ring on the table, then went back to sleep with difficulty. When she awoke in the morning, she found herself back in the beast's castle. Excited, she dressed up beautifully to make him happy. She wore a lovely dress, styled her hair carefully, and adorned herself with sparkling jewelry she thought the beast would like. She waited to see the beast. However, as time passed, he did not appear. Beauty grew increasingly anxious. She spent a lonely day, and even when the clock struck 9, the beast was nowhere to be seen. Her anxiety turned into worry. Beauty became deeply worried that the beast might have died. She ran through the castle, calling his name. "Beast, where are you? Please answer me." But there was no response. She was overwhelmed with despair. After searching every room and hallway in the castle, she suddenly remembered the scene from her dream. She recalled the garden near the canal where the beast had lain. Beauty hurried to that spot. The poor beast lay on the grass, unaware that Beauty had returned. He looked as if he were in a deep sleep, but his breathing was growing weaker. Fearing that the beast might be dead, Beauty ran to him. His face no longer seemed frightening, and her heart pounded as she looked at him. She quickly fetched water from the canal and sprinkled it over the beast's head. The beast slowly opened his eyes and looked at Beauty, speaking weakly. "You forgot your promise. In my sorrow at losing you, I decided to starve myself to death. But I am glad to see you one last time before I die." The beast's voice was weak, but his eyes still held deep love for Beauty. "No, my dear Beast. You will not die. You must live and become my husband. From the moment I extend my hand to you, I promise to exist only for you. Oh, I thought I was only being kind to you, but the pain I feel now shows me that I cannot live without you." Beauty's tears fell on the Beast's face, conveying her sincere feelings. She was heartbroken at the thought of losing him. As Beauty spoke these painful words, the entire castle lit up. Splendid chandeliers illuminated the room brightly. Outside, fireworks exploded, painting the sky with beautiful colors. The dazzling lights decorated the night sky, announcing the start of a celebration. The majestic sound of an orchestra filled the castle, enveloping it in a festive atmosphere. However, Beauty's gaze did not linger on the magnificent spectacle. She turned her head, still searching for her beloved Beast. At that moment, she trembled with astonishment. The Beast had vanished, and standing at her feet was a truly handsome prince. He wore shining armor, and his eyes were filled with warmth and love. His face radiated nobility and kindness, and his smile glowed warmly at Beauty. Although the prince might have captured her attention, Beauty was more concerned about the whereabouts of the Beast. She urgently asked, "Where is the Beast?" "I am here. A wicked fairy trapped me in the form of a beast until a beautiful woman agreed to marry me. She also prevented me from showing my wisdom and wit. In this world, you are the only truly kind person. Only you could move my heart. I will now crown you as my queen." The prince looked at Beauty with gentle eyes and continued to speak. His voice was warm and sincere. "Thanks to your true love and understanding of my heart, I was able to break free from this spell. Now I can dream of a happy future with you." The prince slowly took off his crown and placed it on Beauty's head. The crown sparkled brilliantly, reflecting the light. His touch was gentle and warm, and Beauty was deeply moved by his heartfelt gesture. Beauty, overjoyed, reached out to help the prince up. Her hand was warm and soft. The prince took her hand, stood up, and together they entered the castle. The interior of the castle was beautifully decorated and filled with a festive atmosphere. Bright lights and enchanting decorations illuminated the castle, and beautiful music filled the air. As they entered, Beauty's father and family were already there. Her father, seeing his daughter safe, wept with joy. Her sisters congratulated Beauty, setting aside their misunderstandings and jealousy to offer gestures of reconciliation. The woman from Beauty's dream was also there, revealed as a goddess in the form of a fairy. The fairy approached Beauty and spoke softly. Beauty, this is your reward for your good choices. You sought virtue over beauty and wisdom and found someone who possesses all of these. You will now become a great queen. I hope that power will not corrupt your virtue. The fairy's words echoed through the castle, drawing everyone's attention to Beauty. The fairy was surrounded by light, her voice both gentle and powerful. Beauty felt deeply moved by the fairy's blessing, tears welling in her eyes. The fairy's sincere blessing touched her heart deeply. Inspired by the fairy's words, Beauty resolved to live her life without abusing her power and always upholding her virtue. She and the prince, now transformed from the beast, held hands and pledged to spend their lives together. The castle was filled with cheers of celebration, and people blessed Beauty and the prince's future. The fairy then turned to Beauty's two sisters, her voice still gentle but solemn and firm. I know well the evil in your hearts. You will become two statues, but even within the stone, you will retain your reason. Guard your sister's castle gates. No other suffering will be inflicted upon you, but you will witness your sister's happiness. Until you realize your wrongs, you will not return to your former selves. However, I fear you may remain statues forever. Correct your pride, anger, greed, and laziness. But such a change may be a miracle given your malicious and miserly hearts. As soon as the fairy finished speaking, the two sisters looked at each other in fear. Their bodies began to harden, turning cold and gray. Their eyes filled with regret and fear. They clasped hands, but soon their stony hands could no longer move. They became statues guarding their sister's castle, their faces eternally marked by sorrow and regret. The fairy raised her wand high and waved it. Everything in the room transformed into beautiful, magnificent things befitting a royal palace. A splendid chandelier hung from the ceiling, walls were adorned with intricate gold decorations, and the floor was covered with a beautiful carpet. The room was filled with finely crafted furniture, glowing brightly. However, the two statues remained, standing guard at the castle gate. The prince held Beauty's hand tightly, looking at her as he spoke. Beauty, I am happy to be with you. Now we will start a new life together. Beauty smiled at the prince and replied, I am happy too. We will cherish and respect each other always. The prince and Beauty had a grand wedding. Beauty's father, family, and all the people of the castle attended to celebrate their happiness. The wedding was splendid and grand, and everyone was enveloped in a festive mood. Beautiful music filled the air, and flowers decorated the castle. After the wedding, the prince and Beauty began to rule the kingdom together. They always respected each other and governed the land with virtue. Beauty was always kind and loving to the people, and the prince ruled wisely. They lived a long life filled with perfect happiness, founded on virtue. Their love and trust never wavered, and the kingdom was peaceful and prosperous. Beauty and the prince lived happily ever after, and their story was passed down forever. Their love became a legend, inspiring and teaching valuable lessons to all who heard it. you.